Sir, in the last videos, we covered throws keyword very clearly, sir. There are multiple cases are there related to this throws keyword. Let me explain the first case. Observe that. Here, class test is there. Class test is there. Next, sir, do you know test? What is this one? Respond. What is this one? What is this syntax? Constructor. Okay. Next, public void m1. Public void m1 is there. Do you know here test constructor method is there. Now I'm taking throws exception for the class. At class level I'm taking. Next, constructor throws exception. Next, public void m1 throws exception. Like this I'm taking. Throws exception, like exception is the checked exception only, don't worry. Can you please confirm among these three which throws statement is the meaningful? Is the meaningful, right? So first one, take a bit very special care. So method, for the method, someone is going to call. Methods can be called by some other person, maybe another method or JVM. That's why for the method caller is there, that caller is the responsible to handle this exception. Okay, meaningful, sir. So for the method you can use a throws keyword, no problem, right? Next, the constructor also. For the constructor, caller is there. So the person who is going to create object, tester t is equal to new tester. Tester t is equal to new tester. He is the caller. Regarding the person who is going to create object, that person is called caller. Now he is the responsible to handle this exception. That's why it is also meaningful. No problem. It is acceptable. But class tester, sir, no one is going to call a class. Regarding no one call a class. Everyone can call constructor or everyone can call method. Methods and constructor someone is going to call. Possibility is there. But class no one is going to call. That's why for a class usage of throws keyword is meaningless. That's why compile time error we are going to get. Remember this one, we can use a throws keyword only for constructors and methods, but not for classes or interfaces, but not for classes directly. Okay, like clear? Let me show this one. Have a look once. Look once, sir. Here, observe carefully. Here I'm taking all this nonsense. I don't want just a class test. Here this is the constructor. I'm taking. Here just observe constructor. Next here public void m1 I'm taking, sir. For the method I'm taking throws exception. 100% pakka valid. I'm not seeing any syntactical error. Valid, sir. Now for the constructor I'm using throws. For the method usage of throws, no problem. Now for the constructor I'm checking, sir. Yes, perfectly it is also valid, no issue at all. For the class I'm using throws keyword. For the class I'm using throws keyword. Array, no one is going to call class. That's why the problem is going to come. Observe carefully, sir. Observe carefully. Curly brace expected, but not a throws statement. This is the error we are going to get. That's why throws keyword applicable for methods and constructors, but not for classes. Clear? Now the second case, observe carefully, sir. Here I'm taking class tester, public static void main method, string array args. Class tester, public static void main, string array args. Just observe carefully, right? Sir, now I'm taking throws test. This point already we discussed in throw keyword case, same. Throws test I'm taking. Sir, we can use a throws keyword only for throwable types. We can use a throws keyword only for throwable types, throwable types. But have you observed, right? We are using for test. Test is not throwable. It's a normal Java class. That's why immediately we are going to get compile time error saying incompatible types. Test cannot be converted to throwable. This is the compile time error we are going to get, sir. Remember this one. That means we can use a throws keyword only for throwable types. Okay, for non-throwable types, if you are using, immediately error we are going to get, sir. Now observe carefully. Here I am taking the same example, class test, public static void main string array throws test I am taking. Throws test I am taking, sir. Now have a look once. This is the same code whatever I explained on the board. Okay, now see this one. See this, immediately error incompatible types. Sir, test cannot be converted to throwable. This is the error by default you are going to get. Any doubt? Are you in the position to understand, right? Test cannot be converted to throwable. This is the error we are going to get, sir. Sir, now the important conclusion what you people should be aware. How I can make this one is the valid? Very simple. Class test extends throwable. Class test extends throwable. No problem. It will become child class of throwable. Sir, instead of throwable, you can take exception. Yes, now also it will become throwable only. Or instead of exception, you can take runtime exception. Sir, anything. So extends either throwable you can take, or exception you can take, or runtime exception you can take. Now it will become throwable type. Now that syntactical mistake by default will be gone. Remember, have a look once. Now I am taking class test extends throwable. Are you getting? Class test extends throwable. If I can take extends throwable, now this test will become throwable type. Sir, throws keyword for throwable type meaningful. We won't get that compile time error. Happily the code compiles fine. Are you getting right? Okay. Sir, need not be throwable. I can take exception also. If I can take exception, yes, still the code is the valid. Sir, instead of exception, if you want, you can take runtime exception also. No issue. It is valid, syntactically valid, sir. So we can use a throws keyword only for throwable types. By mistake, if you are using for non-throwable type, immediately compile time error you are going to get. This rule is applicable even for throw keyword also. Throw and throws, sir, can be applicable only for throwable types, but for not the remaining types. Clear? Sir, now the next case, a bit dangerous case, take special care. Here I am taking class test, public static void main method string array args. Public static void main string array args. Here throw I'm taking new exception. Throw new exception, like this I'm taking. Sir, this is the first part. Now the second one I'm taking class test public static void main string array args. Public static void main string array args. Throw new error I'm taking. Throw new error, like this I'm taking. Can you please confirm what is the difference between these two things? Oi, don't tell, sir, here you took exception, here you took error. It is not my required difference. With respect to compile time, is there any problem? Please confirm. If I use like this, if I use like, is there any problem? So in one case the code compiles fine, but in second case the code won't compile. Which one? In one case the code compiles fine, in another case the code won't compile. think a bit logically, then you can get much clarity, I'm sure. Yes, at this point already we discussed, just linking only must be required. Okay, just observe this. Sir, I'm sure in the first case compiler will give left and right compile time error, but in the second case no syntactical mistake, happily the code compiles fine, but at runtime we will get, because we are raising error, right? No handling code, no catch block, that's why exception in thread, exception in thread main, exception in thread main, java.lang.error, java.lang.error we are going to get. It is a runtime exception but not compile time error. Happily the code compiles fine, but in this case the compiler won't compile this code. Can you please tell what the reason? The reason is, just let me repeat this point. In our program, if there is any chance of raising checked exception, compulsory we should handle either by try catch or by throws keyword. So if we are not doing, immediately compile time error we will get. Unreported exception must be caught, declared to be thrown. Okay, now observe, the problem here is, sir, this one is exception is checked exception, exception is checked exception, but error is unchecked, error is unchecked, sir. This one is checked but this one is unchecked. So in our program, if there is any chance of raising checked exception, compulsory we should handle either by try catch or by throws keyword. But we are raising but no handling code, immediately compile time error, unreported exception. Sir, which ones are exception? Must be caught or declared to be thrown. Must be caught or declared to be thrown. Like compile time error we are going to get, sir. Take a bit very special care. That's why, so throw keyword, because something goes wrong, for that I'm raising, but again compiler is going to ask where you are handling meaningless. That's why throw keyword highly recommended to use for unchecked exception but not for checked exceptions. If we are going to use a throw keyword for checked exception, throw, not throws. Don't get confused. Throw keyword we are raising, sir. Unchecked exceptions recommended to raise but not checked exception. It is the checked, we are raising exception to indicate something wrong, but still compiler is going to object meaningless, remember. But anyway, as of now, just aware, this one compile time error, but this one happily the code compiles fine, but at runtime the problems are. Let me show this one. Have a look once. Throw new exception like this, right? Now let me compile. Have you observed unreported exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. Unreported exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. This is the error by default we are getting. Sir, now how you can handle? Better to use throws exception. My JVM is the responsible to handle. Happily the code compiles fine. Are you getting? Happily the code compiles fine like this, right? Okay. Now second, error, sir. Error. Can you please tell, error is the checked or unchecked? Respond. Error is the checked or unchecked? Error is unchecked. So whether you are handling or not handling, compiler never going to check. Compiler will always check only checked exceptions but not unchecked exceptions. That's why happily the code compiles fine. Have you observed? Here, see this one. Is happily the code compiles fine, no compile time error, but at runtime you will get exception. Can you please observe that? Exception in thread main, java.lang.error test.main. So first one is the compile time error, but second one is a runtime exception. Any doubt about this case? A bit dangerous case. With pleasant mind, better to analyze, then you will get much clarity. Sir, now the next case 4, a bit dangerous case, a bit lengthy case. Take very special care, sir. Now I am taking try block, Here just observe try block system.out.println hello, hello, that's all I'm taking. Try block hello. Now catch I'm taking. Sir, simple arithmetic exception I'm taking, sir. Arithmetic exception I'm taking, that's all. This is the first case. Sir, here which exception I'm taking? Catch block for arithmetic exception. Now here try system.out.println hello, hello. Next catch exception I'm taking, sir. Catch exception I'm taking. Okay, that's all. This is the second. Now the third one, try system.out.println hello, hello. Next catch IO exception I'm taking like this. Okay, this is the third. Now the fourth one, try system.out.println hello, hello. Next catch block interrupted exception. So multiple times we used already interrupted exception, like this I'm taking. This is the fourth one. Now the last one, try system.out.println hello, hello. Catch block I'm taking error, catch block error, like this I'm taking, sir. That's all. Observe that in the try block, simple hello, hello, that's all. Simple hello, SOP of hello. But first time arithmetic exception, second time exception, third time IO exception, fourth time interrupted exception, fifth time error. Are you getting? Fifth time error, like this I'm taking, sir. Can you please confirm among these with respect to compile time, which things are going to compile, which things won't compile? Yes, friends, think a bit logically. Among these, which things will compile, which things won't compile? If I can ask this question in my offline session, out of 100, almost all the people never going to answer, because maybe it may be a new point for them, maybe it is not a guessable answer, maybe like so simple answer I will tell. The first one, happily the code compiles fine. Second one, happily the code compiles fine. But third one, compiler will give left and right. Okay, compile time error. Fourth one, compile time error. Fifth one, happily the code compiles fine. I'm providing the hint also. Okay, so first two things, arithmetic exception compiles fine. IO exception, interrupted exception won't compile. Next error, sir, again compiles fine, no problem, right? What the reason? Perfectly it is valid. What the reason for that? The reason is, in the last video somewhere, have you remembered, I covered what is the difference between checked exception and unchecked exception? What is partially checked, fully checked? Have you remembered? Okay, so just go through that video if you didn't memorize. So which are checked, which are unchecked, which are partially checked, which are fully checked, sir? Now have a look once. Arithmetic exception, it's a very clear, it is unchecked. Arithmetic exception unchecked. Next exception, it is partially checked. It is partially checked. IO exception, it is fully checked. IO exception fully checked. Interrupted exception fully checked. Interrupted exception fully checked. Next error, again it is unchecked. Error, again it is unchecked, sir. Unchecked. So compiler won't compile only fully checked case. For unchecked, partially checked, unchecked, happily the code compiles fine. The rule here is, within the try block, observe carefully, sir, within the try block, if there is no chance of raising an exception, sir, no chance of raising an exception, then we can't write the catch block for that exception. Remember that. within the try block, if there is no chance of raising an exception, we can't write the catch block for that exception. Sir, I'm not performing arithmetic operations, but you wrote catch block for arithmetic exception. Okay, I'm not performing any IO operations, but you are writing catch block for IO exception. So within the try block, if there is no chance of raising any exception, I mean that exception, you can't write the catch block for that exception. Okay, remember that. If there is a possibility of raising, then you have to write the catch block. Otherwise, compile time error you are going to get. Sir, compiler will give left and right. Array, there is no chance of raising this exception. Why you wrote catch block? Array, you are not traveling in the car or bike, you are traveling in the train. Why you have to think about diesel? Are you getting? Why you have to think about power? Okay, it's not required. So you are not performing any IO operations, but still you are writing the catch block for IO. Meaningless. So if you are writing catch block unnecessary like this, compiler will give left and right. But this rule is applicable only for fully checked exceptions. Remember this one. This rule is applicable only for fully checked exception. For partially checked, unchecked, this rule is not applicable. Sir, what error we are going to get? Sir, compile time error saying exception. Which exception, sir? IO exception. IO exception is never raised in the try block. Is never raised in corresponding try block. This type of error by default we are going to get exception. So IO exception is never raised, or there is no chance of rising in corresponding try block. This type of error by default we will get just up to the. So let me repeat again. Within the try block, if there is no chance of rising an exception, you can't write catch block for that. By mistake, if you are writing exception XXX is never thrown in corresponding try block. This type of compile time error we are going to get. But this rule is applicable only for fully checked exception. For unchecked exception, partially checked, even you can write catch block, compiler never going to object. Only for fully checked exceptions, compiler will object. Observe this. Have a look once. Sir, first I'm taking arithmetic exception. Is it checked or unchecked? Please respond. Is it checked or unchecked? It is unchecked. If it is unchecked, compiler never going to object anything. Happily the code compiles fine and runs fine. Observe that. Observe this. Sir, I'm taking the code compiles fine. If I run this code also, Java test hello will be printed, sir. Valid. I'm not seeing any problem. Instead of arithmetic exception, simply exception I'm taking. Exception. Can you please confirm, is it valid or invalid? Perfectly this is valid because it's the partially checked. Partially checked. Okay. Now observe, hello, valid, sir, valid. It is instead of exception, IO exception, but which is there inside java.io package. Whenever we are using fully qualified name, import statement is not required. Anyway, sir, IO exception. Now observe that. The problem here, exception, IO exception is never thrown in body of corresponding try statement. Exception, IO exception is never thrown in body of corresponding try statement. This is the error we are going to get. Are you getting right? Sir, instead of IO, I'm taking interrupted exception. Instead of IO, I'm taking interrupted exception. If I can take interrupted exception, have you observed? Exception, interrupted exception is never thrown in body of corresponding try statement. Okay, is the problem. Exception, interrupted exception is never thrown in body of corresponding try statement. Okay, that's all. Next, instead of interrupted exception, now I'm taking simple error, sir. No issue at all. Catch block for error applicable. The code compiles fine. What the answer we are going to get? Simple hello is the answer. So the important conclusion what you people should aware. So within the try block, If there is no chance of raising an exception, we can't write catch block for that exception. By mistake, if we are writing immediately error unreported exception, what is that error? Exception XXX is never thrown in body of corresponding try block. This is the compile time error we will get, but this rule is applicable only for what? Fully checked exceptions. Clear, right? These are 4 important cases related to throws statement. Clear?